Hey guys, I want to go over the Novak radiator installation in the Jeep XJ. Novak manufactures 3 different radiators for use in V8 engine conversions for the Jeep XJ and the MJ. There's a Gen 1, Gen 2 small block Chevrolet, the AMC and Ford engines, and then also the high efficiency dual pass cross flow radiator for the GM LS based Gen 3 and Gen 4 engines. Although you can just get the radiator by itself, I'd highly recommend that you also get our fan shroud assembly. Our SPAL fans will move all together, will move to over 2400 CFM of air, and they're a nice tight clean package, and they complement the engine bay of your XJ conversion. You can install air conditioning. You don't have to go without air conditioning in your XJ. Here's a bunch of the pieces and parts that I've used on this particular one to make this installation look and work just like factory. The transmission cooler needs to be 3/4 of an inch thick. Any thicker than that and it just does not fit in front of the condenser. I do recommend getting as many things out of the way as possible. Radiator support, the grill needs to be out of your way. You need to be able to see what's happening so that you can check fitment and make sure everything is going to go together the way you want it to go together. As you can see here, this is why the Novak radiator is such a big deal. You're only working with about 11 by 36 inches worth of space, and you have to be able to get as much heat transfer out of that area to keep your V8 engine cool. I wanted you guys to see the stock radiator. The Novak radiator is going to fit the exact same way as the stock radiator. The condenser on the stock one mounts to the bottom tabs, and then on the top there's some screws that are mounted to the radiator support. We're not going to use those. We're actually going to mount the condenser directly to the header tubes on the top, or the header pipe on the top and the bottom of the radiator with some aluminum brackets. You just simply hand bend those. As you can see, the condenser wraps around the radiator. You'll have to do a little bit of massaging on those pipes to get them to go in the correct direction. Obviously your compressor is going to be in a different location on the LS engine, and so you're going to have lines coming from different angles, so that's not going to be as important. It's always good to have a friend help you test fit the radiator in. Makes it easier, but you could do it by yourself. Don't forget the little rubber pads on the bottom side with the radiator support. You can see there's a lot of room. This LS engine has the standard crank pulley on it, so it's about 3 inches away from the block. The two bungs in between are going to be, the bottom one's going to be for a temperature sender, the top one's going to be for your steam tube. 1.5 inches is going to be coming out for the thermostat housing, and the inch and a half on the bottom of the radiator. It's 1 3/8 inches on the top, and then the water pump outlet is 1 3/8 inches. And you're going to be putting a radiator fill in between those. You can see here, this is the same amount of fitment as a stock radiator. One last place to check for fitment is at the gearbox. If you forget your grommets on the bottom of the radiator, it can cause some fitment issues, so make sure that those grommets are in place. Put your radiator in place, and your condenser tubes are going to be going to that little area up there. I just simply mark this one with a marker so that when I pull out the radiator, we know where to position that condenser in place. Of course, aftermarket condenser, you got to do a little modification, because we're not going to use these tabs to mount this condenser to this radiator. You're going to want to mount the condenser about 1/2 inch away. I'll put a couple spacers in there, maybe a piece of plywood in there to get your fitment as you mount this condenser on there. I took a couple pieces of aluminum and bent them up into little brackets. You test fit them, cut them, bend them into place, and so it's really not that difficult. Like I said, the bottom portion there, that square tubing, is a support, and so you can drill directly and rivet directly into that. And then I use the top bracket, I just screwed that on. One word of caution when drilling near the core: one slip will wreck a $600 radiator, and that will be on you. You'll notice that the OEM radiator has an integrated transmission cooler. We've decided not to include the integrated transmission cooler, but to run it remotely. We want the transmission to run cooler than the engine, and this is in the vein of how the OEMs are doing it more now. You'll need to run one that's only 3/4 of an inch thick due to the fitment between the condenser and the grill. We'll be using these two 750 CFM fans for the high speed and this 950 CFM fan for low speed. We'll go through hooking these up at a later time in another video. Once again, test fit the radiator back into place, and then you can slide the transmission cooler into the location that you would like to put it in. And like I said, this one I put in front of the low speed fan. Mark that, take it back out, and then mark and drill your locations. Make sure you put a piece of aluminum or wood so you don't damage the radiator. In order to keep things stock looking, I took some Gates hoses and cut a section out of each one and get the correct bends that I wanted for my LS installation. Here the radiator hose is in place. Makes for a very clean installation with the Gates hoses. Here we're looking at the transmission cooler, condenser, and radiator installation. As you can see, it's a very tight fit. If it does fit neatly, never assume that anything fits. Always double check and recheck that things are not going to interfere with. So I included these clips of two Holley mounts. The upper one is the R4 compressor. You can also put a Sandin SD7 in that location. And the low mount Holley 20-160. It's got a SD7, and it fits better than the stock. The stock GM AC compressor does not fit in this location. It hits the frame, but the Sandin fits perfectly. The high mount R4 compressor tends to crowd into the battery compartment, so there is some trade-off mounting it up high versus the low mount position. I hope you've enjoyed this video and the information that's been given. Please subscribe to our channel, hit that like button, and we will be bringing you more videos in the future.